Elizabeth C. Goodell, Esquire, and Kerry Smith, Esquire, Community Legal Services. Beth Goodell and Kerry Smith are integral members of Community Legal Services Homeownership and Consumer Unit. They provide representation to clients and handle significant impact litigation and advocacy, particularly in the areas of predatory lending, payday loans, foreclosure defense, and bankruptcy. They have a long history of victories for low-income consumers, including saving homes from foreclosure, winning large settlements against predatory mortgage lenders, fighting illegal consumer finance practices, and helping to close down illegal payday loan stores in Pennsylvania. Each is worthy of recognition in her own right. Beth Goodell is the managing attorney for CLS's Homeownership and Consumer Unit, where she specializes in bankruptcy and homeownership defense, concentrating on predatory lending and foreclosure. She is a leader in foreclosure law in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and throughout the nation. Beth championed the effort to persuade Pennsylvania's Attorney General to use settlement funds from a National Attorney General settlement with the 5 largest U.S. banks to fund the Homeowners Emergency Mortgage Assistance Program, or HEMAP. Ultimately, the legislature passed the Homeowner Assistance Settlement Act, providing 5 years of funding to restart HEMAP. Beth also was crucial to the founding and ongoing work of Philadelphia's Model Residential Mortgage Foreclosure Diversion Court. She created, organized, and directed mortgage foreclosure volunteer training and materials for the program. Her efforts resulted in the training of over 200 volunteer lawyers, who in turn provided free legal services to scores of clients facing foreclosure. Last year, Beth led an effort against proposed changes that housing advocates feared would undermine the program. Beth has litigated on behalf of clients struggling to keep their homes when faced with abusive lending practices. She discovered a predatory practice by a Philadelphia-based mortgage lender. The lender took deeds to borrowers' homes at the loan signings and took title to the homes when the borrowers fell behind, without filing for foreclosure. Beth recovered title to client homes and helped them report the practice to the U.S. Attorney's Office, which eventually stopped the predatory practice. Beth has trained hundreds of lawyers, paralegals, housing counselors, and other advocates on foreclosure defense, bankruptcy, and litigating against predatory lending. She also organized and presented Plan's first full-day foreclosure institute in 2008, at the height of the nation's foreclosure crisis. In the words of one of her trainees, Beth gives you the information, lets you know what to do with it, and most important, she makes you care. As managing attorney and trainer, Beth recognizes that success is the product of teamwork. While Beth leads the fight against illegal consumer practices involving home ownership, her colleague Kerry Smith focuses on combating predatory consumer lending practices and predatory payday lending. Inspired by the CLS attorneys she worked with as a law student, Kerry was committed to using her new legal skills to work for economic justice for low-income consumers. In 2005, she was awarded a Public Interest Law Fellowship to expand CLS's consumer litigation practice beyond its focus on mortgage foreclosure defense, and to provide direct representation to clients facing legal problems related to payday loans, high-cost check cashing, and other predatory financial services. Kerry made an immediate impact. One of her first assignments at CLS was drafting a class action which CLS, along with its co-counsel Langer, Grogan, and Diver, filed against Philadelphia's largest check cashing agency for making illegal payday loans. She then led a successful effort to convince the Pennsylvania Banking Department to enforce state protections against payday lenders that were making loans over the internet to Pennsylvania residents. One of the country's largest internet payday lenders sued the department to stop its enforcement. But in 2010, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court unanimously ruled that Pennsylvania's consumer protections applied to loans that were made over the internet to Pennsylvania residents. Last year, Kerry represented clients by assembling and leading a diverse group of legal aid advocates, religious-based organizations, community groups, and consumer activists in fighting against House Bill 2191, legislation to legalize predatory payday loans charging over 300% annual interest. With many clients having a direct interest in this legislation, Kerry jumped in to champion opposition to it. Payday loans are marketed as short-term cash advances, but the structure of the loan causes most borrowers to get trapped in a long-term cycle of debt. After paying back the loan, most borrowers must borrow again just to keep the lights on and food on the table. A vicious cycle of repeat borrowing begins, causing borrowers to default on other bills, incur overdraft charges, and ultimately sending borrowers into bankruptcy. Predatory payday loans are illegal in Pennsylvania due to an interest rate cap on small dollar loans at 24% annually. If not for this consumer protection, Pennsylvania residents would pay as much as $233 million per year in interest fees. CLS advocates have a long history of representing clients to stop abusive payday lending. They were surprised at a new and well-funded attempt to make it legal. Given the intense lobbying efforts of the payday loan industry, the bill was expected to pass quickly. Kerry Smith immediately took action against this consumer injustice and almost single-handedly built an incredible alliance to defeat the legislation. Kerry worked with the North Carolina Center for Responsible Lending to organize a coalition of over 70 groups across the state to oppose the passage of HB 2191. She testified at a legislative hearing and lobbied in Harrisburg to stop the bill. 25 of the initial 58 co-sponsors withdrew their support for the bill, but it passed the House in early June by 6 votes. However, the bill did not pass in the Senate, thanks in large part to Kerry's leadership and the efforts of the newly forged broad-based coalition against the legislation. Unfortunately, payday legislation is likely to re-emerge this year. In addition to her advocacy to combat payday lending, Kerry has launched a project to address debt litigation abuses. Predatory collectors routinely obtain judgments against unrepresented consumers without any proof to support their claims. These judgments exact a heavy toll on the poor, stripping them of money they desperately need and impairing their ability to obtain housing and employment. To address what the Federal Trade Commission has called a broken system for resolving disputes about consumer debts, Kerry is working on a project to increase representation in this area and for systemic reform. She also has worked with Philadelphia's Campaign for Working Families to address the abuses by commercial tax preparation companies and to promote the free filing for the Earned Income Tax Credit for Philadelphia's low-income workers. Beth Goodell and Kerry Smith epitomize smart, caring, diligent, and deeply committed legal aid attorneys, overcoming the problems plaguing low-income clients. More importantly, they are the very best at sharing their knowledge and building the team of ardent consumer advocates. The Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network is honored to present Beth Goodell and Kerry Smith with the 2013 Excellence Award. Beth Goodell and Kerry Smith were nominated for the Plan Excellence Award by Kathy Carr of Community Legal Services, Patrick Cicero and Harry Geller of the Pennsylvania Utility Law Project, and Don Meritz of Regional Housing Legal Services.